Out there, beyond the fragile blue shell of our planet, billions of galaxies drift in near-perfect silence. Stars are born, burn, and vanish without ceremony. Against that vast backdrop, a human lifetime barely registers as a flicker. And yet, inside that brief moment, you may carry years of anxiety, ambition, regret, and fear, as if everything depended on this single breath in time. Perhaps the weight you feel does not come from life itself, but from forgetting where you stand within the infinite cosmos. When perspective collapses, the mind clings tightly to what feels urgent, personal, and overwhelming. Stoic philosophy invites you to gently widen that view again, not to diminish your life, but to clarify it. Today's educational video explores the fate of the universe and the fragile transience of human existence through ancient wisdom. By looking at impermanence through Stoic insight, archaeological memory, and calm narration, you may discover how recognizing your smallness can become a profound source of inner freedom and daily mindfulness. In the modern world, pressure rarely announces itself with force. It arrives quietly, woven into expectations, comparisons, and the persistent feeling that you should be doing more, becoming more, proving more. Achievements are measured, displayed, and ranked in real time. Shortcomings feel exposed, even when no one else is watching. Under this constant evaluation, the mind tightens its focus, reducing the richness of life to deadlines, metrics, and imagined judgments that grow heavier the longer they are carried. Yet from a scientific perspective, this intensity is strikingly out of proportion to our actual place in the universe. Earth is a small planet, orbiting an ordinary star on the edge of a galaxy containing hundreds of billions of stars, itself one among trillions of galaxies expanding into deep cosmic time. Astrophysics tells us that most of the universe is dark matter and dark energy, forces still not fully understood, shaping reality far beyond human concern. Against this scale, personal anxieties occupy a vanishingly small window of space and time. Neuroscience adds another layer. The human brain evolved to detect threats and secure survival, not to process infinite information streams or constant comparison. When overloaded, it narrows attention as a protective reflex. What feels like urgency is often the nervous system, responding to imagined danger rather than real risk. Seen through this lens, pressure is not a personal failure. It is a mismatch between ancient biology and a vast, indifferent cosmos. Perspective does not erase responsibility, but it restores proportion. When awareness widens, the weight begins to lift, and the mind remembers that life is larger, quieter, and more spacious than it first appears. Stoic philosophy begins by asking you to pause, not to escape responsibility, but to step back far enough to see clearly. When you lift your gaze from the immediate noise and imagine the vastness of the cosmos, something subtle but powerful happens. The problems that once felt enormous begin to loosen their grip. Perspective does not erase difficulty, but it restores proportion, and proportion brings calm. The ancient Stoics lived in times no less chaotic than ours. Empires rose and fell, plagues swept through cities, and personal fortunes vanished overnight. Yet instead of clinging to control, Stoic philosophy encouraged a wider view of existence. Human life was understood as a brief expression within a much larger order, governed by forces far beyond individual will. When you contemplate the infinite cosmos, you are reminded that your story is not isolated. You are part of a vast unfolding that began long before you and will continue long after. This realization can feel unsettling at first, especially in a culture that teaches you to center everything around personal achievement. But the Stoic insight is gentle. Your value is not diminished by smallness. It is clarified by it. Modern science reinforces what ancient wisdom intuited. Astronomical discoveries reveal galaxies billions of years old, distances so vast they defy intuition, and cosmic events unfolding without regard for human concern. Against that scale, many anxieties lose their urgency. The Stoic mind uses this awareness not to detach from life, but to engage with it more honestly and more peacefully. This is not resignation, it is alignment. When you stop demanding that the universe bend to your expectations, energy is freed for what truly matters. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace begins when attention shifts inward toward character, intention, and response. The external world remains uncertain, but your inner posture becomes steady, a Across centuries, this perspective has endured because it speaks to something universal in human experience. Every generation confronts uncertainty, loss, and change. Technologies evolve, societies transform, but the fundamental condition remains the same. Life is fragile, temporary, and unpredictable. Stoicism survives because it does not deny this reality, it meets it with clarity. Seeing yourself within the infinite cosmos does not require withdrawing from ambition or meaning. Instead, it reframes them. Goals become expressions of effort rather than measures of worth. Success is no longer proof of superiority, and failure no longer a verdict on identity. Both are events, not definitions. This distinction lies at the heart of ancient wisdom. In Stoic philosophy, suffering often arises from mistaking what is beyond control for something that should be controlled. When you believe your happiness depends on outcomes, approval, or permanence, the mind becomes tense. Cosmic perspective loosens this knot. It reminds you that change is natural, and is not an error in the design of life. Archaeological discoveries often reveal this same awareness etched into stone and ritual. Ancient temples aligned with celestial movements, burial sites reflecting cycles of time, and philosophical texts grappling with mortality all point to a shared human intuition. Long before modern science, people sensed their lives unfolding within something vast and mysterious. Stoicism gave that intuition practical form. This is why recognizing your smallness does not lead to despair. Despair comes from isolation, from believing you must carry everything alone. Cosmic perspective reconnects you to a larger whole. It invites humility, not humiliation. When the self loosens, fear softens. When fear softens, freedom quietly enters. What does it mean to live well, knowing you are temporary? Stoic philosophy suggests it means living deliberately rather than desperately. It means investing care in actions, not outcomes. It means choosing integrity over anxiety, presence over projection. These choices do not depend on the size of your life, but on the clarity with which you inhabit it. The endurance of Stoicism raises important questions. What allows a philosophy to survive thousands of years, crossing cultures and historical ruptures? Perhaps it is because Stoic philosophy addresses the unchanging core of human experience. While circumstances evolve, the inner struggle remains remarkably consistent. Stoicism speaks to that inner landscape with honesty and restraint. Finally, consider what your current way of living reveals about your relationship with impermanence. Are you rushing as if time were infinite, or clinging as if loss were unnatural? The Stoic invitation is not to abandon care, but to care wisely. By seeing yourself within the infinite cosmos, you may begin to live, not smaller, but lighter, with steadier purpose and quieter strength. To understand Stoic philosophy, it helps to step back into the ancient world, a time when certainty was rare and stability fragile. Empires expanded through conquest, only to collapse under their own weight. Cities were vulnerable to famine, fire, and disease. Life expectancy was short, and fortune could reverse itself overnight. In such an environment, the question was not how to avoid chaos, but how to remain steady within it. The Stoics did not emerge from comfort. Their philosophy was shaped by uncertainty as a constant companion. Instead of promising safety or happiness through external means, Stoic philosophy offered something quieter and more enduring. It taught that while the outer world may remain unstable, the inner world could be cultivated with discipline, clarity, and calm. This inward turn was not escapism, but realism. In ancient Greece, and later Rome, many schools of thought sought answers to suffering. Some pursued pleasure, others knowledge or social harmony. Stoicism took a different path. It observed that human distress often came not from events themselves, but from the judgments attached to them. By reshaping perception, one could reshape experience. This insight became the foundation of Stoic practice. The early Stoics lived amid political intrigue and personal risk. Power shifted rapidly, and loyalty could be dangerous. In response, Stoic philosophy developed as a kind of spiritual compass. It did not promise control over fate, but it taught how to navigate fate with dignity. Clarity, not comfort, was its goal. In this way, Stoicism became deeply practical, rooted in daily survival as much as philosophical reflection. Thus, as the philosophy matured, it found expression in the lives of statesmen, former slaves, and ordinary citizens alike. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire under constant threat, reflected on the universe as a living whole. In his view, each individual was a small but necessary part of a greater order. This perspective did not diminish responsibility. It grounded it. When you see yourself as part of something vast, ego loosens its grip. Marcus Aurelius understood that human concerns often feel overwhelming because they are viewed in isolation. When separated from the larger context of nature and time, personal struggles appear absolute. Stoic philosophy gently restores that context. It reminds the mind that change is not personal, and loss is not punishment. Both are woven into the fabric of existence. Epictetus approached the same truths from a different angle. Having lived as a slave, his philosophy was forged under conditions of limited freedom. His contribution was to draw a clear boundary between what lies within human control and what does not. This distinction became one of the most enduring ideas in ancient wisdom. Attention, intention, and attitude belong to you. Outcomes, opinions, and external events do not. This boundary offered a form of inner liberation. Even when circumstances were harsh, the mind retained agency over its responses. Stoic philosophy does not deny suffering, but it refuses to add unnecessary layers of mental resistance. By focusing energy only where influence exists, emotional exhaustion gives way to steadiness. This approach continues to resonate in modern discussions of daily mindfulness and mental resilience. What is striking is how similar insights appear across distant cultures. In ancient China, Taoist thought emphasized harmony with the natural flow of life. Resistance created friction. Acceptance created ease. In the teachings of the Buddha, impermanence was identified as a fundamental truth of existence. Suffering arose when the mind clung to what could not last. Letting go was not loss, but release. These traditions developed independently, yet they converge on the same human realization. Life is unstable by nature. Attempts to freeze it into permanence produce anxiety. Wisdom lies in learning how to move with change rather than against it. Stoic philosophy belongs to this broader family of ancient wisdom, grounded in observation rather than doctrine. Archaeological discoveries often echo this worldview. Inscriptions, meditation halls, and ritual objects across civilizations reveal a shared preoccupation with time, mortality, and the unseen order behind appearances. These artifacts suggest that the search for inner stability amid outer uncertainty is not a modern concern. It is one of humanity's oldest pursuits. What allowed Stoicism to endure while many other philosophies faded is its refusal to promise illusions. It never claimed to eliminate pain or guarantee success. Instead, it offered something more reliable, clarity of perception. By training the mind to see reality as it is, rather than as it wishes it to be, Stoic philosophy reduced unnecessary suffering at its source. The depth of this approach lies in its humility. Stoicism does not place humans at the center of the universe. It places them within it. This subtle shift changes everything. When the self is no longer the measure of all things, events lose their power to define identity. You remain responsible for your actions, but not enslaved by outcomes. At its core, Stoic philosophy teaches that the quality of a life is shaped less by circumstance than by interpretation. Two people may face the same hardship, yet experience it entirely differently based on their inner posture. This insight bridges ancient wisdom and modern psychology, where perception is recognized as central to emotional well-being. In a world still shaped by uncertainty, the origins of Stoic philosophy feel strikingly relevant. Conflict, disease, and social instability continue to expose the fragile foundations of human life. Stoicism does not promise escape from these conditions, nor does it soften their impact. Instead, it offers a way to remain grounded within them, without surrendering inner coherence. Across centuries, its quiet wisdom has endured not through force or spectacle, but through steady reflection. Its voice does not shout above the noise of history. It remains calm, persistent, and quietly sustaining. Ultimately, the human depth of Stoic philosophy lies in its compassion for the human condition. It recognizes fear, grief, and desire as natural, while gently guiding the mind toward balance. It does not ask you to become indifferent, but to become discerning. In doing so, it affirms a simple truth that transcends time. A meaningful life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by how you meet it. Philosophy becomes meaningful only when it leaves the page and enters daily life. Stoic philosophy was never designed as abstract theory. It was shaped as a lived discipline meant to steady the mind amid ordinary moments. Cosmic insight, when left unexamined, remains distant. But when translated into action, it reshapes how you meet time, effort, and uncertainty with quiet precision. Recognizing the finite nature of human existence is not meant to dull ambition or detach you from life. On the contrary, it sharpens attention. When time is understood as limited, distraction loses its appeal. You begin to choose more carefully where energy flows. Daily mindfulness emerges not as a technique, but as a natural response to clarity. The Stoic perspective suggests that much of what feels urgent is shaped by illusion. Pressures appear absolute when they are viewed in isolation, without the wider context of time and change. When you remember that every moment is temporary, the sense of emergency begins to loosen. What once felt overwhelming quietly reorders itself, revealing what truly matters and what can wait. This awareness does not diminish responsibility or invite indifference. Instead, it removes unnecessary weight from the mind. The tension becomes steadier and effort more precise. Action is no longer driven by fear of loss or failure, but by intention and clarity. In this way, Stoic insight transforms urgency into discernment, allowing you to move forward with purpose rather than pressure. In work and creative effort, Stoic practice shifts the focus from outcome to effort. Modern culture often ties identity to results, promotions, or recognition. Stoic philosophy invites a different orientation. What matters most is the quality of attention you bring to each task. Success and failure become information, not verdicts, allowing steadier progress without emotional turbulence. When fear of failure dominates, effort contracts, the mind hesitates, overthinks, and delays. Stoic insight dissolves this tension by separating what belongs to you from what does not. Preparation, honesty, and diligence fall within your influence. External response does not. This boundary restores agency and supports sustained engagement without exhaustion. In relationships, cause and perspective softens the impulse to control. Much relational pain arises from expectations that others should behave according to internal narratives. Stoic practice encourages listening without possession. Acceptance does not mean indifference. It means recognizing that each person carries an inner world, shaped by forces beyond your reach. By releasing the need to manage others' reactions, space opens for genuine connection. Conversations become less about defense and more about understanding. When disagreement arises, it no longer threatens identity. This emotional steadiness fosters trust, allowing relationships to evolve without constant tension or correction. Solitude, often feared, becomes a valuable training ground in Stoic living. When external stimulation quiets, the mind reveals its patterns. Rather than avoiding this space, Stoic philosophy suggests entering it deliberately. In stillness, thoughts can be observed without judgment. This observation weakens habitual reactions and strengthens clarity. Seen this way, loneliness is not absence, but presence. It offers a rare opportunity to meet yourself without distraction. Ancient wisdom recognized this inward turning as essential. Across cultures, reflection was practiced not as withdrawal, but as recalibration. Stoicism shares this understanding, framing solitude as preparation for engagement. Daily practices ground these insights in lived experience. Beginning the morning with a few moments of silence establishes orientation before demands arise. This pause is not empty. It creates a mental buffer, allowing you to meet the day with intention rather than reaction. Calm narration of inner priorities sets the tone for conscious action. Writing plays a similar and often underestimated role in shaping inner clarity. When you pause to record a single thought, especially one that distinguishes what lies within your control from what does not, create a quiet moment of alignment. The act itself slows the mind. It interrupts habitual momentum and invites awareness to settle where intention lies. Over time, this practice gently trains attention. Repeated reflections begin to reveal patterns that once operated unseen. Emotional reactions, previously automatic, become observable events rather than commands that must be obeyed. In this space of observation, choice reappears. You are no longer pushed forward by impulse, but guided by understanding. What begins as a simple habit gradually reshapes perception. Writing turns abstract Stoic philosophy into something lived and personal. It becomes a mirror rather than a rulebook, offering steady self-guidance amid uncertainty. Through this quiet discipline, insight deepens, and inner order grows without force. As these practices repeat, stillness develops resilience. Calm does not imply passivity. It allows you to respond precisely rather than reflexively. In moments of stress, the mind recalls its training. Breath slows. Perspective widens. The present moment becomes manageable, even when circumstances remain uncertain. Scientific research on mindfulness echoes these ancient observations. Attention training reduces stress responses and improves emotional regulation. Stoic philosophy anticipated these findings through disciplined observation. It recognized that the mind, when left unattended, magnifies threat. When guided gently, it restores balance. Ancient wisdom and modern psychology converge here. Unexplained mystery also finds a place in this practice. Not everything yields clarity. Archaeological discoveries remind us how much remains unknown about past civilizations and human consciousness. Stoicism does not demand answers to every question. It teaches comfort with uncertainty, recognizing mystery as a feature of existence rather than a flaw. Living with this acceptance alters how you face the future. Plans remain important, but they are held lightly. Hope is balanced with realism. Fear loses its authority. You become capable of sustained effort without attachment to fixed outcomes. This flexibility strengthens both mental health and moral clarity. Over time, Stoic practice reshapes identity. You begin to see yourself less as a bundle of reactions and more as a steward of attention. Choices become quieter, more deliberate. Life does not become easier, but it becomes clearer. This clarity supports consistency even amid disruption. From cosmic insight to daily practice, as Stoic philosophy completes its arc. It begins with awe at the vastness of existence and ends with care for the smallest action. By honoring both scales, you live neither overwhelmed nor detached. You move through the world grounded, aware, and steady, guided by ancient wisdom adapted for modern life. As this journey through Stoic philosophy begins to settle, a single insight quietly rises above the rest. Across centuries, cultures, and disciplines, the same understanding repeats itself in different forms. Human freedom does not begin with controlling the world, but with mastering one's response to it. From Marcus Aurelius, reflecting amid war and plague, to modern thinkers like Viktor Frankl, observing the human spirit under extreme conditions, the message remains steady and unadorned. Circumstances change endlessly. Power shifts, relationships evolve, bodies age, and certainty dissolves. Yet within all this movement, one space remains consistently available. It is the space between event and response. Stoic philosophy centers itself in this space, not as a retreat, but as a point of agency. This is where choice lives, quietly and persistently. Impermanence, often feared, is revealed here as a teacher rather than a threat. When nothing is guaranteed to last, attention sharpens. Moments gain texture. Ordinary experiences become meaningful, not because they are permanent, but because they are flitting. The Stoic mind does not rush past this fact. It rests within it, allowing transience to deepen appreciation rather than erode it. Modern life rarely leaves space for reflection. Noise is no longer occasional, it is continuous. Information streams without rest, opinions demand immediate alignment, and a sense of urgency is manufactured around almost every moment. Within this atmosphere, constant reaction begins to feel normal, even necessary, while stillness appears uncomfortable or unproductive. The mind learns to move quickly, but not always wisely. Stoic philosophy gently challenges this pattern. It suggests that clarity does not emerge from speed, but from pause. In a world shaped by relentless stimulation, choosing calm is not withdrawal. It becomes a form of quiet resistance, restoring balance and discernment. The mastery of self does not announce itself loudly. It does not dominate conversations or seek validation. It reveals itself in restraint, in patience, in the ability to remain steady when others rush to judgment. This form of strength is subtle, but enduring. It does not depend on external reinforcement. It grows through consistency and awareness. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Surrounded by responsibility and chaos, he returned again and again to the same inner discipline. He recognized that while the external world demanded action, The internal world demanded care. Without that care, action became reactive. With it, action aligned with principle rather than impulse. Viktor Frankl, centuries later, observed a similar truth from a different context. Even when external freedom was stripped away, meaning remained accessible through choice of attitude. This observation did not deny suffering, it reframed it. Meaning was not found by changing reality, but by meeting reality consciously. Stoic philosophy shares this understanding, grounded in dignity rather than optimism. What emerges from this lineage is a clear lesson. Freedom is not the absence of constraint, it is the presence of awareness. When you recognize what cannot be controlled, energy stops leaking into resistance. That energy becomes available for what remains within reach. Thought, intention, and action regain coherence. In practical terms, this mastery appears in small, ordinary moments. It shows up when frustration arises and does not immediately dictate behavior. It appears when silence is chosen over reaction, when listening replaces defense, when patience outlasts provocation. These moments may seem insignificant, but they accumulate into character. The Stoic approach does not demand withdrawal from the world. It encourages participation without entanglement. You still care, strive, and commit. The difference lies in attachment. Outcomes are engaged with effort, but not with identity. Success does not inflate the self. Failure does not diminish it. Both are experienced fully, then released, in a world shaped by comparison. This posture is quietly radical. It frees you from the endless measurement of worth against external standards. When value is grounded internally, the noise loses its authority. Our attention returns to what is present and real. Life becomes less about performance and more about alignment. Archaeological remains of ancient civilizations often reflect this inward orientation. Spaces designed for reflection, ritual objects tied to cycles of nature, and writings concerned with virtue rather than accumulation suggest a shared understanding. Human societies have long sensed that without inner order, outer achievement remains hollow. Stoicism gave this intuition structure in language. Stillness, in this context, is not passivity. It is readiness without agitation. It allows perception to widen, revealing options that panic obscures. In moments of conflict or uncertainty, the calm mind sees more clearly. This clarity supports ethical action, not withdrawal. Mastery of self becomes a form of service, stabilizing not only the individual, but the environment around them. As you consider your own life, it may be useful to pause with a simple question. Who are you becoming in response to the world's noise? Are reactions shaping your days, or are values guiding them? Stoic philosophy does not insist on perfection. It invites awareness. Each moment offers another opportunity to choose deliberately. The vastness of the universe reminds you that your time is limited. This realization does not diminish responsibility, it refines it. When time is finite, how you respond matters more than how much you accumulate. Meaning shifts from possession to presence, from control to care. The open ending of Stoic wisdom is intentional. It does not prescribe a single path. It asks you to examine your own. In the face of what kind of person feels worth becoming? What inner posture allows you to meet uncertainty without collapse? These questions are not meant to be answered once, but revisited over time. In a world saturated with noise, mastery of self becomes both a refuge and a compass. It offers a place to return when attention is pulled apart by distraction, and it provides direction when values begin to blur. Rather than reacting to every signal, the centered mind responds with intention. Ancient wisdom never promised comfort or ease. It spoke instead of balance and endurance. This steadiness does not eliminate difficulty, but it allows you to move through it without losing coherence. Within a universe vast beyond comprehension, such inner stability may represent the most authentic form of freedom a human life can attain. When you allow yourself to see your own fragility within the infinite cosmos, fear begins to soften. In its place arises humility, and with humility comes a quiet kind of freedom. Stoic philosophy does not ask you to withdraw from life or deny its challenges. It invites you to stand firmly within them, guided by clarity rather than agitation, and by awareness rather than illusion. Impermanence, once resisted, reveals itself as an ally. It reminds you that each moment carries weight precisely because it will not last. This understanding does not make life smaller, It makes it more vivid, attention sharpens, choices become intentional, presence replaces urgency. In this way, ancient wisdom transforms uncertainty into steadiness. If these reflections have resonated with you, consider leaving a comment to share what stood out. And if you would like to continue exploring Stoic philosophy, ancient wisdom, and calm narration for daily mindfulness, you are welcome to subscribe. Together, we can keep returning to the ideas that help us live more deeply, more slowly, and with greater meaning.